Hi, today in this video we're gonna talk about accessibility and why should you care about it, why could it be important for you, and because I have thoughts about it but I'm not an expert, I have invited a real expert with me here today, and let's welcome Steffi. Hello.
Hey Marcus. Hi everybody.
How are you?
I'm excellent.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm excellent too. So, firstly, tell us something about you.
Oh goodness. Well, there's so much, Marcus. My name is Steffi. You know that already. That's good. I've been designing user experiences and doing front-end development and presentation design for a lot longer than I care to mention, maybe like 20 years now. So yeah, and in the last 2 or 3 years, I've totally been down the accessibility rabbit hole. So it's kind of exciting. And that's what my content's about.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning for maybe somebody who doesn't know what is access. Yeah, it's even a difficult word. Learn. What is accessibility?
That was awesome. Okay. Accessibility. It means that we're designing things when we're talking about accessible design, that we're designing our stuff, our videos, our websites, our apps, our presentations. We're designing them so that everybody has an equally excellent experience. Not the same experience, because that's just too tall of an order, but for accessibility, everyone, no matter what your body is like, however it functions, that you have an equally awesome experience. That's what accessibility is.
Okay, that's a very nice definition. I guess you didn't talk about this for the first time.
I've been droning on about it for a bit. Yeah.
Okay. So, but now, if I'm not a big company, just doing small things like maybe some YouTube content or a website, or I have to do a presentation, why should I care about accessibility?
Okay. Well, let's talk about who you're actually designing for, right? People think of accessibility as designing for, I don't know, people who have complete loss of sight, or they're colorblind, or they're part of the deaf and hard of hearing community. But there are so many other types of disabilities. And so there are temporary ones and situational ones. Now, let's go over some of those. We'll go the other end, situational. They're the shortest kind of disability. You're on a plane and you're trying to work on your computer, and the light coming through the window that no one will close is giving you a lot of screen glare. So it's that has to do with visual, the visual part of accessibility, so making sure things contrast properly, like high enough so that you can still see them. Or maybe you have a million children around you going, "Oh my God, I need your attention. Hey mom, what's for dinner?" You know, that kind of thing over and over. So you're distracted. You're not mentally present the whole time. Accessibility and designing accessibly can actually help with that too. And we always design for our future selves, right? We're all going to end up disabled in some way or another in the future. Some people get there faster than others. But even situationally, you can design for your hungover self. Like, what happens when you're drunk? What happens when you're drunk? Like, do you, I don't know if anybody watching. Yes. I don't know if anybody overly imbibes on adult beverages. But, you know, you experience light sensitivity, you experience, your brain is moving slower. So you've got some cognitive slowdown. So designing accessibly will also help for your drunk over. your hungover friends.
Ah, okay. Yes. Yeah, and I liked it for what you said for us in the future. So so later on we still can enjoy what we created ourselves.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because it's interesting, and I'm going to say this as an American. There are, I experience this myself, and I'm trying to train myself not to be. But as Americans, I find that we tend to be a little more selfish than some other cultures. So if it's harder to think of other people to help them, I know lots of people, everybody here watching is like the biggest hearts I know. So you wouldn't have a problem with this. But when you get pushback, you're like, I don't want to design accessibly. That's just going to ruin my style. You can say, look, how about you design for your future self instead? And it kind of hits home for the people who have trouble thinking outside themselves, which happens a lot.
Yeah, but I find it interesting, situational, and even let's take the iPhone. There are some features under the accessibility function group that I can use, and I'm just glad they are there. For example, that it also flashes with a light when it's calling, so everyone can benefit in some way or another.
Yes, when you design for the I hate saying this because I don't know a better way to say it, but when you design for the edge cases, which are the very disabled people, and I don't like saying it that way. If somebody knows a better way to say that, put it in the comments. But when you design for those edge cases and make it better for them, you're making it better for everybody. Like that flashing thing on the iPhone, when you have a notification, that's for all of us distracted people. When my dog is here whining at me to throw the ball, and I'm like, but I can see out of the corner of my eye that there's a flash going on, right? So, yeah.
Yes, and there are the things like, if you're talking about comments in a live stream, to read them out loud. It's not only for people who can't see very well, it's also for people maybe watching on the mobile phone and the text is really small, or people just listening to it, or maybe you want to repurpose it later and make an audio version.
And another example of that is if you are presenting at a conference that might be hybrid. You have in-person people, but you also have online people. Or meetings for work, there are in-person people and there are online people. When someone has a question, always repeat the question.
Yes.
Because the microphone might pick up on it just a tiny bit, but it's always good to repeat the question. Not only for the people who can hear, but the subtitling will pick up on it better as well.
Yes, subtitle is a good point. I saw there would be possibilities I could put subtitles into this video right now, but there I think the trade-off is a little big because it can be distracting for people who don't need that. And so I'm very happy I heard somewhere that YouTube will enable captions for live streams for smaller channels too. So
that's excellent. Yeah. I actually started when I do public speaking, a lot of the times I will there's a feature where you can have live captioning on. Because I present from PowerPoint. I'm a Microsoft person. I love Microsoft products. Most of them. I hate Teams. I'm looking at you, Teams. But but in PowerPoint, you can do live captioning as you speak. It'll pick up on it. You cannot swear. It will not caption your swear words. I have tried, but it won't. But yeah, captioning is important whether you do it live or if it just happens afterwards for the recording.
Yeah, that can be unfair too, because maybe it's appropriate to swear in some situations. and sometimes you might not be swearing, but the captioning will hear you incorrectly and put a swear word up. So it's probably a good thing
that it does not caption them. Anna said, yay, PowerPoint is awesome. Yes, it is.
Yes, but
Yes, it is.
But there is a good talking point as well, because PowerPoint, the software is awesome, that's for sure, but most people use it in a such bad way.
Yes. You are not wrong. You are so right. It takes training. It takes practice. That's exactly what I was just laughing at too.
Okay.
It's never duck.
What the duck? Okay.
It's never duck. No, but for, okay, so for accessibility for YouTube specifically, when your title cards, so color contrast, let me back up. There is too much. Besides the obvious, besides like captioning and things like that, one of the most impactful things you can do for accessibility is the one that's most noticeable to the most people, and that is color contrast. Having enough of a contrast between the text and whatever is behind the text so people can read it. And that for like title cards or for your thumbnail shots or what have you, that's where, especially for YouTube, you can really have a big impact. So you can reach your colorblind contingent. They can see it better and they're like, oh, I can read that. And then they get it and they're going to click and view. So, yeah.
Okay. What are combinations to avoid? I know about red and green.
Yeah.
But maybe a little bit more.
There are, okay. And so I never speak to them as their very technical names because they're very long, weird words. Okay. And boring. And I want accessibility to be fun. Okay. So there's some tools online that could help you figure out these color contrasts. I think the most well-known one to avoid is green and red together. It's probably the most prominent colorblind issue, type of colorblindness. But there are some websites, and you know what? I'll send you the links later, Marcus, if you want to stick them in the description later.
That would be great, yes.
In case anybody needs to check their color contrast. So there is a place called 8 Shapes. It's a contrast checker. You just type in a list of hex codes for your colors, and it will automatically produce this beautiful grid that will tell you what works and what doesn't.
Okay.
All right. And so that's one of my big go-tos. And if you ever want to test your thumbnails, to see what they look like, as a colorblind person, it's Cobly. There's a tool called Cobly, Coblis. I really wish I knew sign language so I could sign that.
We'll put it all in the description.
We'll give the links later, but It's great because you can upload your thumbnail and you can see it how there are 8 different colorblind situations. You could see it in all of the situations, which is really, really cool. It can really hit home.
Isn't it enough if I put it in black and white and then I would see the contrast? Or
usually black and white is the most severe form of color blindness. It's monochromatism is what it's called.
I mean, if I take my thumbnail and I take all the color out just to black and white, then I would see if there is enough contrast. Or.
You know what? I would, because I'm a scientist, I cannot definitively say yes without running my own experiments.
Okay.
But I would say probably. Okay. And now I feel like I need to go run those tests and put up a video about it.
More work for you.
Yeah. No, that's good work. I love this stuff.
Okay. but we also get the link of this special site for you. And then we have Paul here. He says it's pretty impressive how many accessibility, this word is so hard.
I know, isn't it?
Options game have these days too. Yeah. Is there also a legal thing to where you have to do it, or is it just for selling more?
Well, there is a legal thing actually. Well, at least in the United States. So if anybody's familiar with any laws about accessibility in other countries. I would love to know them. Actually, I would like to go read the really boring stuff so I can translate it to be more fun. But yeah, in the States, at least, there are a few things. So you've got your top level, which is ADA compliance. ADA is typically physical spaces. However, ADA says, okay, physical spaces, yes, but guess what? Websites count too. That's what ADA did. And then after that, you put ADA aside completely. You're like, whatever. Then you have 508 compliance. 508 compliance that's the law regarding digital accessibility in the States. And you can, if you're not 508 compliant, you can lose government contracts. You can be fined up to $75,000 for the first violation. You can be fined $150,000 for each subsequent violation. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody but it's important to know. So if you do ever go and try to be a very conscientious, that's a hard word, digital designer, and you're trying to bring accessibility into the workflow, into the business, and you get pushback from executives, and they're like, I don't want to do that. Or the brand people. I've a separate story there. If you get pushback from them, you can say, okay, understood, but this is what you're risking. Mm-hmm. Good news is, though, as long as you show that you're trying to improve your accessibility, typically you won't actually be fined.
Okay. And I guess there would be similar laws in many countries nowadays. But I think that's not even the most important motivation we should have about it.
It's not.
It's like we explored, so we can be more inclusive, but also it benefits all. I guess the trick is to make it in harmony with your design goals. Mm-hmm. So I guess it doesn't have to be ugly to be accessible.
It doesn't. You are inside of my head, Marcus.
Okay.
How did you know that? So I actually had an experience with someone I worked with, and I had done an audit of the website, and I discovered all of these accessibility features. Pause there. Yes, Paul, it is a little ironic. Accessibility is so hard to say, just like it is ironic that phonetic is difficult to spell. Anyway, so I was working with, I was on the user experience team on the web side of things. And on the other side of things, you had the brand designers. And I don't know if anybody else out there is a designer, but we are a special kind of protective of our work. We're a little snobby. But I had a designer and I said, hey, look, our brand has some accessibility challenges and we need to fix them. And this was a Zoom call. He never goes on camera, but I could hear his visceral reaction. I could tell he had a full body flinch without seeing him by the tone of his voice. Mm. He was like, oh God, like, I don't want to design in black and white. I'm like, what? That's not what I said. People have this preconception that accessible design is ugly design, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yes. But now back to the little creator. So me, for example, I put content here in YouTube, and maybe sometime later I will think, okay, I need a website to promote that. And I do that on top of a full-time job, so I need it to be easy to do.
Yes.
So do you have some tips how we get there easy?
I do. Apart from that whole color contrast thing, just when you're writing your copy for your website or for your YouTube descriptions. I know there's a lot of thought that has to go into that copy. You're trying to hit all of those keywords that you need and everything, but to be really accessible, to be understandable by the most people, remember to write it in plain and simple language. Okay, avoid too many acronyms. Avoid made up words. I mean, it sounds like fun and everything, but it's also really hard for people with cognitive impairments to really understand what you're saying. Bullet out your content. Don't do huge blocks of text, right? So have a paragraph and then make bulleted lists on your website. And this is where people in presentations get in trouble because they're like, oh, but it's death by bullets and stuff. But used properly, bullets can be really helpful with instant understanding or simple understanding. Other things like for websites, make sure your line length isn't too long. I think maximum character width is like 67. I don't know. I have to look that up. But when you see a big blocks of text and you have to read all the way across the page and then come back and all the way across the page and come back, it's really a lot of energy that your brain uses to actually read that and go back and go back and go back, right? So, shorten the blocks of text width-wise. That helps a lot. Simple little things like that.
Yeah, but all those things you said, I think, are just good practice in general.
They are. You're right. But not everybody practices.
Okay.
Not everybody goes by it. But a lot of those best practices are actually really good for accessibility. They're hand in hand. Hand. Maybe I should cut back on the wine.
I stay with the tea.
You're probably yes, it's very late for you. So yes, you should stay with the tea.
Yeah, but maybe let's go back in a little tangent with PowerPoint, because it's that's not just about accessibility, but we had a little discussion today where I said just use less slides, and you said but no, use better slides.
There's a danger in that less slide rule. So
Okay.
I have actually seen people people have told me, they're like, okay, I'm only allowed to have 10 slides for my presentation. That's great. But do you know what they do? They put a novel on every one of those 10 slides.
Okay.
So the key is one thing per slide. I'm not saying one word, but one idea per slide.
Yeah.
And then you have to narrow that down and you edit. Try the 3-word challenge. There's a thing called the 3-word challenge, which means your title's really, really long. I challenge you to try and get that down to 3 words. Now, can you always get it to 3 words? No. And that's okay. The point is the process that you go through to rethink and reframe what you're speaking about and how you're speaking about it. If you get it down to 5 words, that's awesome. It used to be 13. That's a great reduction in words, as long as it's in simple English and you didn't reduce words by making acronyms. Don't do that.
Okay. But I have 2 theories why it is that people like to put more on the slide. And one is they use it as a backup to know what they're saying. That's really bad because it gets even more boring. And the second one is they don't make a difference between what they can give as a handout, where it will be perfectly all right to have more, and what they will use for actual presentation. Okay.
Yes,
I see you agreeing.
You are 1,000% correct.
Okay, I get points.
You get all of the points today,
Okay.
Marcus. All of them. Because, okay. So people use it as a crutch all the time because they don't rehearse enough. They're panicking at the last minute putting their presentation together because they have deadlines to meet. And that's totally understandable. But you have to make time to practice it. You have to practice it, especially if you're standing up in front of people and it's not pre-recorded. I almost hit my face into that thing. But you have to practice. Practice not only puts that material into your body and you like know it in your core, and then you can speak to it. There's a note section in PowerPoint and Keynote and all that stuff where you can put like prompts for yourself. All that text can go in the speaker notes section, and then you can use that to remind yourself. And if you need to do handouts, well, I'm going to have a special video about that as well, because there's some really cool stuff you could do in PowerPoint, probably in Keynote too. I'll go figure that out. But okay. PowerPoint's my jam. There's a really easy way you can customize the notes page within PowerPoint so that you have a handout. And that handout doesn't have to go after the presentation, right? So you have people with cognitive disabilities who take longer to process content, who have ADHD, other things like that, right? So you make those handouts and you send it ahead of time so people can read it, so they can process it, and then actually have their full attention on you as the speaker.
Yes, that's very important. I was going to say that. Don't let the slides be the star, be the star yourself. More points for me.
More points for you. I say that all the time. You are the star. The star is not the slides. It's a huge thing that you need to remember, because it's actually scientifically proven that people cannot read a slide and listen to you at the same time. Scientifically proven, it is impossible. So you have a choice to make. Do you want people to read your slide and not pay attention to you? Or do you want their focus to be on you, right?
Yes, and
I want their focus to be on me.
Yeah, Ellie makes a good point. Anxious people might want to hide behind the slides. And
yeah. And I don't blame them.
It's really tempting. I've done that too sometimes. But
it's scary.
Yeah. But just, I would say, practice. And there's a reason people are coming and you are talking to them. If all is on the slide, you can just send them per email.
Yes. It's scary, and practice makes perfect. Practice is really good. The more you do it, the more relaxed you are. Okay. See, look, David, you got it.
He's dyslexic and can't listen and take notes. He loves handouts. Yes, and sometimes you can give them at the same time, or if you for some reason don't want to, then at least tell people that they will get them and they can relax. Yeah. Because they know I don't have to write everything down. I will get the handout. That's really reassuring for people. Yeah.
It really is. You want your audience, whether they're watching you on YouTube or they're sitting in a meeting room and listening to you, you want your audience to be relaxed and ready to learn and not distracted by struggling with things that you could have prevented for them.
Yeah. And Anna is saying, so glad to hear I'm in the right path. Sometimes I feel people think a bit too much because I put so much work on my PowerPoint presentation. But Steph, you just validated her belief. Yeah.
Yeah, keep it up.
Perfect.
Look,
absolutely.
Yes. So yeah, having the skill of creating a really impactful presentation, and I say this because presentations don't have to have slides. Okay.
Absolutely.
Everybody here is a presenter. All of my LIDA friends, all of my online MVNG people, all of us streamer accelerator people. Wow. Okay, too much wine. All of the streamer accelerator people, we're all presenters. We're all presenting without slides. So anyway, yes. I had a point there. And I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, and another good thing is you can use a flip chart. I found it really much more effective if people see you write out something in real time. It's so much more engaging than to just see it on a slide.
Yeah, and I think it also gives them more time to process it, because as you write, you can only write so fast.
Of course. Yeah.
So while you're writing, everyone's brains have an opportunity to to ingest what it is that you're writing. Now I see.
Yes.
I was going to say, I see a question here from Mommy Lala. Here, are there basic rules to consider when designing for accessibility? Is there such a thing? Rules? No, I hesitate to ever call them rules. Guidelines? Hell yes. Yeah, so one of the big things I think is if you are making a thumbnail or you are making a presentation, I mean, think of it as like a billboard. If you're driving 60 miles an hour down the highway, will people be able to see whatever your thumbnail or slide or whatever it is? Will they be able to process it and get it fast enough, driving down a highway at 60 miles an hour? I don't know what the kilometers per hour is. I apologize. I could math, but again, it's too late in the day for that. So white space is really important. A thoughtful use of white space. And if you're not familiar what white space is, it's just the empty space. It doesn't actually have to be the color white, but it's the empty space where there is just nothing, or a gradient or a picture, but not type. There's not text there. So a very thoughtful use of white space gives your audience's eyes a place to rest, gives their brains a place to go, I get it.
And it's like in the living room, you're also not putting every area you have full with things. You also want there some breathing space, and it's the same in writing or graphics. Yeah.
So white space.
But then there comes the marketing guy again and says, okay, let's do white space marketing.
Yeah, those CTAs, man, you gotta, and our friend Luria, she does a great job with the ones that you can purchase from LSB. There's really good use of white space in those CTAs and those layouts that she creates. Awesome. Marcus, you've got an excellent use of white space where we're presenting here right now.
Yes,
nice little area.
We put the comments away and our names, and now we have, we have white space.
No, I mean, even with the names, that's so minimal. It's great. It's fantastic. It's not too busy. It's not making my brain go, oh my God, where do I need to look? I know where I need to look, right? But can I take a moment and talk about bias for a second?
Of course.
Because bias is something, okay, when you're designing things, you inherently have bias. I'm biased, you are biased, and it just has to do with the way our own bodies, what is normal for us. What is normal for me is I'm not colorblind, I use a mouse, and I live near a city, so I have high-speed internet. So there are biases. There's mouse bias. I use a mouse all the time. So it's not natural for me to consider designing with a structure that works for screen readers and people who use keyboards to navigate. I'm not colorblind, so my first instinct isn't to think about, oh gosh, what color combinations are going to suck for other people. And there's technology bias. There's all kinds of bias. So my technology bias, I have really great internet. If you ask my husband, he disagrees. But we do have really good internet. And that means that I can stream in a higher resolution. I can make websites. I can work really quick. If I'm on a webinar and I'm presenting, my first instinct is not to think, oh gosh, how are my transitions, or how am I appearing to people who are in rural areas with really shitty internet connections? What's the lag like there? That's not my first instinct, right? So it took me a year to train myself just to think of color issues first. And it's a hard thing to practice. I mean, and it's kind of hard to get over, but all of us have our own inherent biases. So I have a challenge for you. So next time you create a thumbnail, or next time you're creating, I don't know, whatever it is you're creating, try to think, how am I biased? What is normal for me that might not be normal for someone else? And then how can I help that someone else experience my content just as awesome as someone else does, as just as awesome as I do.
Yes, but I guess there is where the tools can be really helpful, because not everyone can study it for years like you. So, so we have the tool you mentioned that we will put in the description with the colors, and maybe for websites, if you're not a professional developer, just go with some tool that already considers most of these things.
Well, what's really cool is that if you're creating a website and you're not a web developer, right? Most of those big tools, most of the main things out there already, they have a lot of accessibility built in. I mean, if you stick with that tool and use it the way they recommend, you're pretty okay. And really the only things you need to worry about are the language that you use and the colors that you use. Those two things, if you think just those two things solely into whatever tools you're using, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, the fun thing is, I didn't want to make words up, but since you mentioned I should not make words up, I now want to do it. But I guess if it's just a few words, sometimes.
Well, fun fact, I do have an acronym to help remember types of disability, the things that people can experience. The acronym is SCHIT. Shit.
Okay.
Sight-related, cognitive-related, hearing-related, interaction-related, and technologically related. Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be in another video.
Yeah. Yes. I already forgot those. But speaking about videos, you're planning to launch a channel where you will talk about those topics we discussed today. Can you talk about that a bit?
I would love to, Marcus. So, I know many people have heard about the other channel that I'm starting, but I'm also starting the Accessible Design Lab. And in that channel, I'll be talking about accessible digital design for websites, for thumbnail, for, streaming, whatever digital assets you're creating, how designing accessibly can improve them. So when I keep saying there's going to be another video about that, I already have a long list. And I think the first one's probably going to release on November 18th or thereabouts. I'm actually giving a talk on the 17th that includes a lot of the content, and I want to wait until after that conference is over to start launching those videos. The chat's going hilarious, you guys.
Yes. Since Sarah come in here, everybody is yelling.
Shit. So,
what do you have to say to all caps? Is it a good idea?
I do have, Marcus. It's like we're best friends. God.
Okay. Everybody is yelling.
All caps. Not only does it indicate yelling, which is awesome because everybody's yelling at each other and us, which is, I love you guys. I love you guys. I just spoke in all caps. But people who have dyslexia or other visual issues or cognitive issues, all caps can really fuck with your head. sorry, can really screw with your head.
No problem.
So,
I'm not monetized, so just
not yet. Not yet. You will be someday.
okay. Then we'll cut it out.
Then we'll bleep me. But yeah, all caps is really difficult for a lot of people. Oh, and here's a fun one. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of Erlen Syndrome. So my stepdaughter has Erlen Syndrome, and it is a light sensitivity issue. So what happens is, I've been talking about colors and having a high enough, there we go. And having a high enough color contrast. But you can also have a contrast that's way too high. So here's the thing. With this Erlen syndrome and light sensitivity issues, if you have pure black on pure white, those letters, or pure white on pure black, it works both ways. The letters that you read will start dancing or flipping or doing a lot of kinds of funky things. And actually, my stepdaughter had issues learning to read as she was growing up. And eventually, my husband, working with some doctors, figured out that she had Erlen syndrome, which is a light sensitivity issue. And it's the pure white that's the problem. So, I mean, it's actually a fairly simple fix, is that you get glasses with a certain color lens, and that fixes it. For the most, and then the letters stop dancing, which is great. But that's another thing to consider. Pure white on pure black, I do not recommend it.
Yeah, okay, but so it sounds then difficult. So you won't solve the one problem, and then But if you have good design on the website, people can change the colors on their ends, I guess.
I mean, if you're really ambitious, you can have dark mode. I think Safari and the Apple products have a lot of dark mode options now as well. There are services online. What's it called? I just discovered it lately. nighteye.com, something like that. I'll look it up and I'll let you know.
But let's go back to your YouTube channel, because we were distracted by the chat and we left that. So I put a link to your website here. Will you link your YouTube channel there, or maybe we put it in the description afterwards too?
Oh yes.
Because that will be really interesting.
Oh, Mama Lala, my friend, you bring up a good point. Sometimes when I wear black and white prints, it seems like the design is dancing on screen. And here's a fun fact. It's not just black and white prints. I don't know if this is an accessibility thing, but this is just a video thing in general. Yes. And that can be very distracting. Small prints.
Yes, I have. No, it doesn't dance, but I've saw that.
I can't see it.
Yeah, I saw that too with some clothes,
what's it called? Like the really thin stripes that are really close together. It's not a plaid, but it's a something else. But small prints, really tight prints, fine lined prints on video will dance on screen. That's why you want a big, bold print that's large, and then it won't dance on screen.
Yeah, and once again, it's a good idea in general to have the things you think it's important in big letters.
Yes. Yeah. There's all kinds of design principles that we could talk about, but we'd be here all night, and you need to sleep at some point.
No worry. Yeah, and you had a really long day already. But the funny thing is, last week I had Paul Burke here, and I was inviting him to talk about improv, and then he announced, yes, he will do some regular improv for live streams. And this week I have you to talk about accessibility, and you're saying, yes, I'm going to launch a YouTube channel about that. So let's make that the thing. I ask someone to come here about something, and they... they have something to announce. It's great.
Yeah, right? That's the thing. We come to Marcus to announce our stuff.
Yes. Like with the big talk shows, people come
Yeah.
to promote their stuff.
So when
but I
Daniel
didn't
Craig, James Bond, decides he's going to launch a YouTube channel, we'll make sure he comes to you.
Of course, yes.
Yes. Yes.
But then I get a haircut first.
Oh, please. Do you see my hair? It's all kinds all over the place. And no need for haircuts.
I like the color, so I don't see the rest. But can you give us a sneak peek of what you will do on the YouTube channel?
Oh man, a sneak. Oh, why do I have everything open? Let's see. Okay, the first video. I don't know. Pulling up stuff. My computer's really running slow for some ungodly reason, even though I have good internet. I don't know why. I don't know what's happening. But I think the first video being released is called "Design for Your Hungover Self," and then there is "Saved $75,000 with good design." Probably the first two videos. It's just basically getting into who you're designing for and why you should design accessibly. Hint, the spoiler for you guys is you shouldn't design accessibly only to save $75,000. I mean, it's great if you do. That's the fine, if you remember. That's how much you could be fined for the first violation. So prevent that fine, but you do it because it's the right thing to do. Let's be honest.
Yeah, Paul says that those are great titles. I totally agree. Will I have to be drunk for that video then?
You do not. You do not. No one has to be drunk for any video because not everybody drinks. That would just be mean of me.
Okay.
But I will not. I might be a little silly. I will not go full on drunk because let's face it, I'm 43 years old and I can't wake up like roses and sunshine the next day anymore.
Yeah. And I'm sure there will be in the internet, you find everything, so maybe you will find a drunken simulator where we can see the video like we would be drunk.
That's such a good idea. Oh, you guys. Okay, here's a fun thing. Total sidebar. Well, sort of a sidebar. I'm going to hunt this down. I'm going to hunt it down. There's a person who assesses the user experience of websites specifically while completely drunk. It's like the designer's version of drunk history, and it's
a dangerous job. I think that he has to get early retirement.
Oh, hey, Sarah asks, have we talked about language subtitles already? Sarah, I'm not quite sure. There are different things that you could mean there. So if you could elaborate, that'd be awesome.
Please
clarify
your question. We've
My
talked
video
a bit
over
about
here,
captions, but
my video keeps freezing on the most elegant of faces.
okay. Yeah. Doesn't matter. No freezing here, so.
That's good. I'm glad. Maybe my husband's right. Maybe he's streaming everything right now on all the TVs.
Okay.
I wouldn't put it past him. But okay, so let's see. Language and subtitles. Let me tell you about a cool thing. Okay. So I want to say like 5 things at the same time and my brain is competing right now. Specifically within PowerPoint, and you can, as you present, turn on live subtitling, like I said. But what's really cool is that you can change the language of your subtitles. So you can set the language you're speaking in, and then you can choose the language of the subtitles. So if I'm speaking here in English and I want my subtitles to be in Japanese, I can actually set that for my live captioning. So I can go to a conference, I can speak in English, but I'll be in Japan and people would probably prefer to hear their native language, or read it or something. Maybe they, whatever. So you can set the subtitles to be the language of the audience you have, the primary language, which is super, super cool, super, super awesome. And which is why I think David in the audience and somebody else, Joel, was helping me figure out that NDI thing in Ecamm, so I could actually have those subtitles up while I was speaking.
But have you tested if it's accurate enough for professional use?
There was a short stint in which John Pullum, our friend John Pullum, pulled on, who was it? Someone who speaks Japanese.
Yuka.
Yes, Yuka. He pulled Yuka in just to see if any of it was accurate, and she said it was passable.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I think in a professional environment, you don't want to sound like a bad translated.
No, and you know what?
In the 80s, there were these computer games from Nintendo, this Stop and Watch or something, and they were translated so badly. Maybe it was good in English, but
yeah,
it were words in German, but it didn't make any sense.
Oh my gosh, yes. I think I remember playing some of those games.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Sarah clarified, I just have so many subscribers from all over the world, and I would love to make it more accessible for those that English isn't the first language. Can you help there?
You know, that makes me want to go research YouTube's captioning, because I know that there are options to set. The key is when you upload your videos or when you do them, is you always set the language of that video to the language you're speaking in. And that will help with the translations and captioning of people who use language other than the language that you're speaking in. How accurate it is, I really don't know. Big companies always go for translation services. And I don't know if there are any cheap ones for small fries like us. So I'll have to read. I'm going to make a note. Hold on. Let me pull out my Post-its. I'm a Post-it addict. I have Post-its.
We're filling your video idea list today. That's very good.
Yeah, you are.
And after that, we can all go and watch it. That's perfect.
Captioning.
Yeah, and I think YouTube tries to figure out the original language as well. But I had a test upload, and then my Swiss German was recognized as Dutch. So
really?
Yeah, because
interesting.
Yeah, Swiss German, I guess they don't really use that, and then it was maybe some sounds were similar. But I guess they're pretty good with recognizing English. I wouldn't think a problem there.
Yeah, I think probably the most predominant languages are the ones that work best. English, French, Spanish, and German. Maybe Japanese and Chinese. Outside of that, it's probably iffy.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to figure out.
Oh, Mommy Lala. It takes a while for the closed captioning to apply for. Let me give a shout out to Mommy Lala, who switches effortlessly back and forth between English and Tagalog. You're speaking Tagalog, right? And I absolutely love watching her, but when people, especially bilingual people or trilingual people, are just going back and forth between languages, I'm sure YouTube is just having an aneurysm when it's trying to caption those things. So yeah, that's another thing. If you can caption your own stuff and upload that captioning file, it's going to be way better. And let me tell you, I just subscribed to Descript.com, and it's amazing because, well, I speak English, so I feel like I'm at a slight advantage there because it's automatically I feel like it does English really, really well. I don't speak a dialect that's outside those broad umbrellas of language. I speak French as well, but poorly. And the thing is, you can actually type in there and edit the transcript that it pulls up for you and make it correct. And then you can export the correct transcript that you yourself have edited and pull that into YouTube, which is so cool.
Yes, so we have much to look forward when you do your videos in your channels. And then we can learn more about all those things. And I see you're taking notes. That's good.
I am.
So you're not starting one channel. You say no, that's not enough of a challenge for me. You're starting two. So let's talk about the other one too for a bit.
You know, I am a glutton for punishment, and I know because I can see Luria's head I can see her face in my head right now. No, you need to focus on one. So honestly, the main one is probably going to end up being the Accessible Design Lab, because that one is something I can easily do by myself. And I have a long list of topics that I can very quickly and easily record because it's ingrained into my heart. The other channel is the Maker Science Lab, and that's launching later. And the reason for that is because my beautiful 9-year-old daughter is my lab assistant. And she is here with me half of the time. So every other week she's here, and every other week she's with her dad. So we can only shoot video every other week. And then I have to edit it. And the content itself for the Maker Science Lab, which is the science behind art supplies, so that you understand how your stuff works, so you're more confident working with it. It takes a lot of research and a lot of remembering all of the chemistry behind it, because I am also a chemist. And putting together all of the extra video stuff that is required there, it takes so much extra time. So that's going to be probably a once a month release schedule to begin with, at least, because it's so intense and content heavy and research heavy. But the accessible design lab is easier for me to get out on a weekly cadence. And I wanted to try and get them all in one channel, but they're just different enough that it really wouldn't make sense to have it on one.
Yeah, I guess there wouldn't really be a big overlap. Yes.
No, I didn't want to get into the science behind accessible design, because I'm a chemist, I'm not a biologist, and I don't want to learn biology. Any scientists in the audience watching understands that we are very, I'm a hard science. It goes math, physics, chemistry, biochemistry, biology, psychology. Right, okay. As hard science and soft science. And we're kind of snobby with each other. That's okay.
Perfect. Yeah. So any more questions from the audience? Let's see. I think we're through there. But yeah, be sure to send me all those links, and
I will send
everything in the description. And yeah, I look really forward to seeing those videos. I already saw on both channel a welcome video, and we have just wait for a bit more there.
Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So
this was so much fun.
Yeah, and I tried to make this around an hour.
Perfect.
Let's see what Sarah has to see. Her son just picked chemistry as one of his subjects next year. Okay.
That's awesome. I hope he has a good teacher. It makes all the difference.
Yeah, like with everything. Okay, but I guess because the glass is empty.
Glass is officially empty now.
And so we're through. And thank you all very much for being here, live or in the replay. If you're in the replay, leave a comment so we know that you were here. Thank you, and have a nice rest of the day. Bye.
Bye, everybody.